Hi everyone, welcome to the channel Morning Alarm. Today our topic is centralized and client server architectures for DBMS. This is very important topic in the DBMS syllabus for all the CSC students. And you can take the screenshots while I am explaining. You can pause the video and take the screenshots. Please subscribe to the channel for more important concepts like this. We are also having a blog with the name Morning Alarm Wake Up. You can get all the notes in these videos there. So please visit that. So let's get into the topic. The first one is centralized DBMS architecture. Architectures for DBMS are similar to those for general computer system architectures. Older architectures used mainframe computers to provide the main processing for all system functions, including user application and interface programs, as well as all the DBMS functionality. So in the older times we used general computer system architecture which used mainframe computers to provide the main function programming for all the system functions. The reason was that in older systems, most users accessed the DBMS via computer terminals. These computer terminals are used in the older systems, in which these are all terminals that are connected to a mainframe computer that did not have processing power. These terminals only had display capabilities, and these are all connected to the mainframe computers. So, therefore, all processing was performed remotely on the computer system housing the DBMS, and only the display information and controls were sent from the computer to the display terminals. So, the only information sent to these display terminals was only display information and controls, which were connected to the central computer via various types of communication networks. In this type of architecture, the display terminals are connected to the main computer, and only the display information and controls were sent to these display terminals. And how they are connected to the main computer? Via various types of communication networks. As prices of hardware declined, most users replaced their terminals with PCs and workstations, and more recently with mobile devices. As the hardware prices has declined, these terminals were replaced with the PCs. At first, database systems used these computers similarly to how they had used display terminals. So, how the general computer system architecture was there, similarly the DBMS systems also used this architecture, so that the DBMS itself was still a centralized DBMS. So the basic structure of the DBMS is nothing but centralized architecture, in which all the DBMS functionality, application program execution, and user interface processing was carried out on one machine. So this is the centralized architecture of the DBMS, in which all the display terminals are connected to one main computer, and only the display information and controls were sent to these display terminals, and all the display terminals are connected to the central computer via communication networks. This is the basic structure of the database system, and still it is a centralized DBMS where all the functionalities and application program execution and user interface processing are carried out on one machine. So let's see it in the form of a diagram. A physical centralized architecture. As you can see in the diagram, the terminals are display monitors, and the operating system is consisting of system, software and hardware. These are connected to different display terminals, and on the display information and control was passed to these terminals. This is called the centralized system architecture. The next one we have is Client server architecture. So first, before going to the client server architecture, we should understand what is the basic client server architecture. In this client server architecture, it was developed with computing environments in which a large number of PCs, workstations, file servers, printers, database servers, web servers, email servers, and other software and equipment are connected via a network. So in this type of architecture, many servers are connected together via a network. The idea is to define specialized servers with specific functionalities. So each server in this architecture plays a specific function. The concept of client-server architecture assumes an underlying framework that consists of many PCs, workstations, and mobile devices, as well as smaller number of server machines connected via wireless networks or LANs and other types of computer networks. So the client-server architecture has an underlying framework that consists of many PCs and workstations and mobile devices. All these devices are connected via wireless networks or LANs. By this we can say that the client-server architecture is used where several servers are connected via a network. Let's see what is client and what is server in this architecture. A client in this framework is typically a user machine that provides user interface capabilities and local processing. A client in this framework is nothing but a user machine that provides user interface capabilities and local processing. When a client requires access to additional functionality such as database access that does not exist at the client, it connects to a server that provides the needed functionality. So a client in this architecture does not contain additional functionality access. When it needs, it has to be compulsorily connected to a server, and only the server can provide the needed functionality to the client. So what is client in this architecture? It provides user interface capabilities and local processing but does not have access to additional functionality. When it needs the additional functionality, it has to be connected to a server and the server provides needed functionality to the client. Let's see what is a server. A server in a system containing both hardware and software that can provide services to the client machines such as file access, printing, archiving, or database access. So a server in this architecture is nothing but the hardware and the software which provides access to the client like file accessing, printing, archiving, etc. In general, some machines install only client software, others only server software, and still others may include both client and server software. So some machines only contain client and some server, and some may include both client and server. So logical two-tier client-server architecture is given here. Clients are connected via a network to the different servers like print server, file server, DBMS server. So the client and servers are connected via a network, and whenever the client needs some additional functionality, it has to connect to some server to get the functionality. Next, physical two-tier client-server architecture. In this we have diskless client and client with disk, server, and server and client. As we read, some have client and only some have server, and some have both client and server. Here it has only client, here server, and here we have server and client. All these are connected via a communication network. So based on the client-server architecture, the client-server architecture is of two types, two-tier and three-tier. Here we have seen the diagrams of two-tier client-server, physical and logical architectures. So I will explain what are these architectures and how they occurred. The first one we have is two-tier client server architecture for DBMS. In relational database management systems, RDBMS, many of which started as centralized systems, the system components that were first moved to the client side were the user interface and application programs. So all the system architectures are centralized as the basic structure of the DBMS. But in relational database management systems, the system components like user interface and application programs are moved to the client side. So it formed the client side. Because SQL provided a standard language for RDBMSs, this created a logical dividing point between client and the server. So why these components are moved to the client side and some other components are moved to the server side? Because the SQL language provided standard language queries for the RDBMS. So this created a logical dividing between the client and the server. Hence the query and transaction functionality related to SQL processing remained on the server side. On the client side we have user interfaces and application programs. On server side we have query and transaction functionalities. In such an architecture, the server is often called a query server or transaction server because it provides two functionalities. So in this type of architecture we call it as query server or transaction server because it is offering the functionalities nothing but query and transaction functionalities. In RDBMSs, the server is also often called an SQL server because it is operating on the SQL language and its functionalities are query and transaction functionalities. In this type of architecture, the user interface programs and application programs can run on client side. When DBMS access is required, the program establishes a connection to the DBMS, which is on the server side. So whenever the client side needs some access, then it has to be connected to the server side. Once the connection is created, the client program can communicate with the DBMSs. A standard called Open Database Connectivity ODBC provides an application programming interface API which allows client-side programs to call the DBMS. So after the connection is established between the client side and server side, something has to be provided to the client to call the server side programs. So what is that? Open Database Connectivity is providing an application interface, application programming interface. This helps the client-side programs to call the DBMS as long as both client and server machines have the necessary software installed. A client program can actually connect to several RDBMSs and sends query and transaction requests using the ODBC API, which are then processed at the server sides. The architecture described here are two-tier architectures because the software components are distributed over two systems, that is, client and server. The advantage of this architecture is its simplicity and seamless compatibility with existing systems. The next one we have is three-tier and n-tier architectures for web applications. In three-tier architecture, there is an intermediate layer between the client and the database server. So, in two-tier architecture, we have client and server side. In three-tier architecture, we have an additional intermediate layer between the client and the server. This makes difference between the two-tier and three-tier architecture. This intermediate layer or middle tier is called the application server or the web server, depending on the application. So the name of this intermediate layer is application server or the web server. This server plays an intermediary role by running application programs and storing business rules that are used to access data from the database server. So between the client and the database server, we have intermediate layer, application server or web server, and this stores the business rules and application programs used to access the data between the client and the database server. It can also improve database security by checking a client's credentials before forwarding a request to the database. So by checking the client's request to whether to send it to the database server or not, it is providing security to the database. Clients contain user interfaces and web browsers. So what are the clients containing here? User interfaces and web browsers. And this is the diagram we have for 3-tier client server architecture with a couple of commonly used nomenclatures. So the client is present at the top level and the database server is at the bottom level. Between the client and the database server, we have application server or web server. This acts as the intermediate level and it checks the client's requests. If the client's requests are proper and the security is good, then it sends the client's request to the database server and gets the data from the database server and sends the required access and functionalities to the client. The intermediate server accepts requests from the client, processes the request and sends database queries and commands to the database server, and then acts as conduit for passing processed data from the database server to the clients, where it may be processed further and filtered to be presented to the users. So the basic function of this intermediate server is to accept requests from the client, as we discussed, and check the client's request and then send to the database server. From database server, it gets the required functionalities and then present it to the client. The intermediate server processes the request and sends database queries and commands. So the request is processed and in the form of queries and commands, it is sent to the database server and then acts as a conduit for passing processed data from the database server to the clients, and after it, the processed data is sent from the database server to the client, where it may be processed further and filtered to be presented to the users. Thus, the user interface, application rules, and database acts as the 3 tiers. So, the user interface, application rules, and database acts as 3 tiers, and forming these 3 tiers, it is called as 3-tier architecture. Other architectures have also been proposed. It is possible to divide the layers between the user and the stored data further into finer components, thereby giving rise to the entire architecture, where n may be 4 or 5 tiers. So in this architecture we have 3 tiers, and these layers can be further divided into many layers like 4 or 5 layers, and it leads to the entire architecture. Besides distributing programming and data throughout a network, entire applications afford the advantage that any one tier can run on an appropriate processor or operating system platform and can be handled independently. So what is the advantage of entire architecture? Each tier can run on appropriate processor or operating system platform and can be handled independently. Each tier can run on appropriate processor independently and can be handled independently. So this is the advantage of entire architecture. And in 3-tier architecture we have 3 layers: client, application server or web server, and database server. In 2-tier, the intermediate layer is absent and we only have the client and the server. So we have discussed what is client and the server, and how it led to the two main types of architectures, 2-tier and 3-tier, and also the centralized architecture of the DBMS. So this is about the centralized and client server architecture of the DBMS. Hope you understood the video. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel for more important and useful concepts. See you in the next coming videos. Thank you.